Welcome to this explainer. When you or I look at a new housing development, it's incredibly easy to just see the surface, right? The poured concrete, the wood framing, the freshly laid asphalt. But today, we're going to look right past those physical materials. We're going to explore the hidden drivers of a home builder's financial risk and opportunity. Essentially, we are decoding the SASB Home Builder Standard to figure out what really makes or breaks a modern real estate development company. So let me ask you this. Can tracking things like water fixtures and flood zones actually lower a home builder's cost of capital? For a long time, there's been this widespread misconception that sustainability in real estate is just greenwashing, or maybe just some good PR. Well, we're going to challenge that right now, because these environmental and social factors aren't just feel-good metrics. They are directly anchored to a company's bottom line.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll be looking at 1. The financials of sustainability. 2. Land use and ecology. 3. Workforce health and safety. 4. Design for resource efficiency. 5. Community impacts of development. And 6. Adapting to climate change.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the financials of sustainability. To really grasp the weight of this information, we have to look at the timeline. This isn't just some niche framework anymore. It's the new global benchmark. It was originally created by SASB, the Sustainable Accounting Standards Board. But then the International Sustainability Standards Board, or ISSB, actually assumed responsibility for it in August 2022. That really solidified its global importance. Now, version 2023-12 officially takes effect on January 1, 2025. Make no mistake, this is the definitive standard for financial disclosures in home building. Okay, let's dive into this master blueprint. This outlines the exact metrics that institutional investors are using to measure the 5 pillars we're about to explore. From ecological impacts all the way to climate adaptation, these aren't vague, abstract concepts. We're talking about highly quantifiable metrics tied to categories, unit measures, and specific accounting codes. It is, quite literally, the spreadsheet of a builder's future financial health. Moving on to Section 2, land use and ecology. This is all about where builders choose to build. Builders are basically walking a very fine financial tightrope here. On the risk side, developing on raw, ecologically sensitive land, which is often called greenfield development, can lead to some seriously costly fines, massive permitting delays, and depreciated land value. And that is especially true if you're trying to build in regions dealing with high water stress. But what about the reward side? Well, builders who lean into smart growth and conservation strategies achieve much faster permitting approvals, smoother compliance, and they secure really strong growth opportunities without having to battle local regulators every single step of the way. So how do we measure that? The standard looks closely at the exact kind of sites a builder is acquiring. Let's break down these specific SASB definitions. Redevelopment simply means reusing existing structures. A brownfield is a property where reuse is complicated by potential hazardous substances. And a grayfield? That's a previously developed site covered by at least 50% impervious surface. Think of an old, abandoned shopping mall parking lot. The crucial takeaway here is this. By tracking the exact number of lots and homes delivered on these specific types of sites, investors get to see exactly how well a builder is mitigating those super expensive greenfield regulatory risks. All right, Section 3, workforce health and safety. Protecting the workforce. Let's be real, home construction is not fully automated. It takes intense, physically demanding manual labor from both direct employees and subcontractors. And the financial impact of that human element? It's staggering. Looking at the risks, high injury rates lead to skyrocketing workers' comp costs, higher insurance premiums, severe project downtime, and serious damage to a builder's social license to operate in a given community. Conversely, the reward for building a proactive safety culture is that it actively protects project margins, prevents costly delays, and ensures continuous operations. Safety isn't just an HR issue, folks. Workplace injuries hit the bottom line incredibly hard and incredibly fast. 200,000. Now that number might seem totally random, but it is actually the bedrock of safety measurement. It represents 100 full-time workers putting in 40 hours a week for 50 weeks a year. This is the exact mathematical baseline SASB uses to calculate the TIRI. That's the total recordable incident rate. By using this standard formula, investors can directly compare the safety records of direct employees and contract employees across different home builders, perfectly apples to apples. Next up, Section 4, Design for Resource Efficiency, or Sustainable Home Design. Now we're shifting gears to how these homes actually perform once the buyers move in and turn on the lights. The major risk here is falling behind on evolving building codes. If a builder ignores energy and water efficiency, they just end up producing less competitive homes that cost the buyer way more to run. But the reward? achieving absolute sales price premiums. Features like low-flow faucets or highly efficient heating and cooling aren't just nice eco-friendly talking points. They actively lower the homeowner's monthly utility bills. That drives up market demand and creates a massive competitive advantage on the sales floor.
To prove they're actually delivering on this, builders rely on third-party multi-attribute green building standards like LEED for Homes or the National Green Building Standard. These certify everything from energy and water conservation to material efficiency, indoor air quality, and even homeowner education. Tracking the number of certified homes delivered sends a clear signal to the market that a builder has the operational chops to cost-effectively build premium, future-proofed inventory.
Let's zoom out a bit for Section 5, Community Impacts of Development. We are looking at the neighborhood level now. Imagine dropping a massive new development into an area without even considering the surrounding infrastructure. The financial liabilities there are severe. We're talking insufficient sales prices, massive costs to build out new power grids or water lines, and major permitting delays driven by angry local residents. However, the reward for smart urban planning is incredibly lucrative. By integrating homes with existing access to transit, services, and economic centers, builders see increased property values and really robust community support for their future projects. So how do we actually measure that kind of smart planning? By tracking infill and contact developments. This basically means counting the number of homes built on underutilized land that already has existing infrastructure in place. By tracking density and mixed-use walkable neighborhoods, it proves to investors that a builder is highly efficient. They're optimizing land use and avoiding completely unnecessary, expensive infrastructure buildouts. And finally, we arrive at Section 6, Adapting to Climate Change. These are the big systemic market shifts. This brings us face to face with the stark reality of physical climate risk. If builders choose to ignore long-term climate models, they risk holding severely depreciated land, building properties that literally become uninsurable, and facing a total loss of buyer demand due to extreme weather threats like flooding. But the reward for paying attention? Long-term enterprise value growth. Builders who rigorously assess physical climate risks and employ resilient home design are going to protect their investments and ensure their company's viability for decades into the future. To measure this exposure, the standard uses a very specific piece of industry jargon, the 100-year flood zone. As defined here, this is land subject to a 1% or greater chance of flooding in any given year. Translating that jargon is absolutely vital. Tracking the exact number of lots a builder holds in these flood zones acts as a direct, undeniable metric of their exposure to climate-related financial devastation. Which leaves us with this final, provocative question to ponder. How will measuring these 5 hidden drivers fundamentally reshape the housing market of tomorrow? By looking past just the lumber and the nails and rigorously tracking ecological impacts, worker safety, resource efficiency, community integration, and climate resilience, we finally get the true, complete picture of a home builder's financial health. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I hope this leaves you thinking entirely differently about the future of intelligent real estate investing.